I am delighted to be here. I am so proud of the realtors who roughed into the snow to get here today. Let's give them a hand, legislators. Come on. I'm also honored to not only be here with the realtors, but also with the legislators that have come down to join you. And this is always a great opportunity to exchange ideas and get to know each other better. And you know, I've learned a few things since being governor that you would never become governor unless you were governor. So yesterday I get a call, and this is my staff, and they say, do you know the protocol in a big storm? I said, no, I don't know the protocol in a big storm. They said, well, the protocol is that if the highway folks think that the storm's big enough, dangerous enough, that they call the, this is government for you, they call your chief of staff. And then your chief of staff calls Secretary of Administration. Then the Secretary of Administration has to call you to find out whether you call it a snow day. So keep your cell phone by your bed because we're going to be calling it at 4:30 tomorrow morning. I'm thinking to myself, my God. So that's how government works. I'm the third on the chain to get woken up at 4:30 in the morning to answer a question I already know the answer to. And they said, well, what's that? I said, they did not elect me governor of Florida. Go to work. And don't wake me up tonight. Anyway, I'm proud that the realtors have the same spirit that came out today. You're not realtors in Florida either, and we're proud of you for that. Listen, we want to make sure that you have a robust and extraordinary year. And I have said that as governor, we all know it was kind of a tight election. And whether I was elected or whether Brian had been elected, I don't think that Vermont in a long time has been more united on what the challenge is. And as realtors, you see it every single day. The challenge for this government, for this legislature, and those assembled here is, how do we grow jobs and grow economic opportunities for Vermonters? That is the mandate, whether it was close elections or landslides. That's what we have to get done, and that's what we're going to work on every single day. We want to make sure that your sales are better this year than they were last year. And we're going to work 7 days a week to make sure that happens. And I've talked to a few realtors. I was on Charlie and Ernie with one of the realtors from Chittenden County last week, and he came in and he was in one of those commercial breaks, and I said, so how's it going? He said, it's going great. He said, we just had the busiest 3 weeks that we've seen in 12 months. And I said, I told you so. We're going to get it done. We've already increased sales, and we're going to keep at it every single week. Anyway, I was kidding, of course, but we do have a bright future together. Let me talk a little bit about what the challenge is, and I really want to answer your questions. We all know that you've been in a tough business for the last few years. And we all know that so is most of the rest of Vermont's business. We also have a tough budget to deal with, and the legislators here are working hard to try and take my budget and make it work. But we have multiple challenges on multiple fronts to grow jobs. The first is we have to balance the budget. We have a $176 million shortfall. I am bound and determined to ensure that we balance the budget to match the state's spending with taxpayers' ability to pay. And that if we do it right this year and get it right and make the tough choices, we won't be back here next year trying to match what we spend and the promises the government makes with what we can afford. So we're going to get that done. It's a tough budget. There's nothing to love about it, but it does make the necessary cuts on a sustainable, ongoing basis to put Vermont back on a responsible fiscal path. And that's our first job. But I keep saying, well, if that's all we do, then we miss our opportunity. And how, as a small business person who has had some success in business down at the other end of the state, down the southern end, we have to ask, well, what is it the government can do to help grow jobs and make sure there's more real estate sales and that Vermont can afford to own homes and that we ensure that the economy expands? And I've said a million times, government does not create jobs. Business people do. What government must do and can do is make the infrastructure changes that are necessary to ensure that jobs grow. And what are they? While we're balancing the budget, we are also trying to get health care costs under control for all Vermonters. I think we have an extraordinary opportunity to do it. Whether it's the federal government or the state government, state of Vermont or the state of Nevada, where everybody has failed in health care reform is in getting the cost containment part of health care reform right. We cannot afford the system that we have. We're spending $2.5 billion as a state. 10 years ago, we were spending on health care. Today, we're spending over $5 billion, 10 years later. Tomorrow, we will spend $1 million more than we spent today on health care. A little state of 625,000 people. And I don't need to tell you as business people how tough it is to deal with those 10, 15, 20% premium increases every single year coming out of your high. Well, some say, well, geez, Governor, if you pass a single-payer plan where you finally get cost containment right, we reward physicians for keeping us healthy and get the insurers and the rest, there's a waste out of the system, which Dr. Shao estimates will save us $500 million in the first year. All these people are going to come to Vermont, flocking in, because they're going to say you got cheap health care there, so we're coming over. You know, and hear that across the state. I say, wait a minute. That's the system we have now. That's why we're broke. One of the reasons. You know, we have Catamount, we have VHAT, we have Dr. Dinosaur. We're the best insured state in the country. If you're really going to go shopping for insurance, the best government programs, you'd come here right now. Our problem is we didn't figure out how to contain costs within the system. So we're going to work tirelessly to pass a health care system that we can afford. That'll grow jobs. Second, and I don't need to tell you this, broadband and cell service to every last mile by 2013, or we will not grow jobs. And folks often ask, when they talk to me about moving to Vermont with jobs, hey, how can I do that? If I buy a house in Ludlow, or I buy a house in Brattleboro, or I buy a house in Barton, or I buy a house outside of Burlington, I can't get cell service half the time. And I know I can't get high-speed internet. How am I supposed to run my business from there? We're going to deliver high-speed broadband internet to every last mile of Vermont by 2013. And if you're in a back road, we're going to take care of you in the same way as if you were on Main Street. It is the electricity of the 1930s. We can't compete without it. And if you want to sell houses in Vermont, you got to be hooked up, and we're going to hook them up. And it's going to be a huge help to realtors in Vermont. And third and finally, we've got to be the education state. The state where when Vermonters, when people come here to grow jobs, when people come here to live, they say, you know something? Vermont is the state where if I bring my kids with me, they will get an extraordinary education and be trained for the jobs of the 21st century. We're going to have to do some things differently there, but we're going to work innovatively and cooperatively to build the best education system in the country. Those are some of our unambitious goals: balancing a budget, passing a single-payer health care plan, getting broadband every last mile, the education state. The last one is taxes. And I know this might surprise you coming from a Democrat, but it is alleged that Sarah Palin said that she'd be good at foreign policy because she could see Russia from Alaska. And I don't need to tell those of you from the eastern side, I can do tax policy. So I'm the first governor since George Aiken that can see New Hampshire from my house. And I am not going to forget where I came from. I have watched jobs get exported to New Hampshire. I've watched shoppers get exported to New Hampshire. I've watched real estate sales get exported to New Hampshire all of my life. And we're going to be competitive. And that means we solve our problems without raising broad-based taxes. It means when someone comes in like they did yesterday with a great idea to raise the cigarette tax $1 a pack because we'll raise $10 million, they claim, I say, my God, you must be smoking something other than tobacco if you think that you're going to raise the cigarette tax $1 and bring in $10 million. Right now, we have $5 million more than we expected this year in Vermont because the tobacco tax is suddenly competitive with New Hampshire and lower than New York and competitive with Massachusetts. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out where that money came from. $5 million drifted in Vermont from folks who are addicted to tobacco in other states. I say bring them on. We need the money. Let's be smarter about how we run government. So those are some of the things we're thinking about. We'd love to answer your questions, but we're going to grow jobs together, one job at a time. We have an extraordinary legislature. Republicans and Democrats, progressives, independents working together, great leadership, and we're looking forward to working with you for a brighter future. Thanks for having me.